You can all join palms and repeat after me. I take refuge in the Buddha. I take refuge in the Dharma. I take refuge in the Sangha. Keeping the palms joined. Put palms down. All right, good morning, everybody. Nice to see you all here. Thanks. Who was that? Now I'm just curious. What's up, man? Thanks. So one of the things I'm really kind of excited about in the new year to host as an ongoing program, or at least an introductory program, hasn't been planned out yet, and I really just kind of confirmed in my mind about 3 seconds ago that we were going to do it, which is kind of how most programs have been built around here for 17 years. Some of them survive, some don't. But I'm really excited to start a program that actually teaches people how to take care of a temple. Because we don't know how to do that. We know how to fund a temple. We know how to show up to a temple. We know how to sit, and meaning just sit. But how do we take care of it? That's the most important thing. Because if we don't learn how to do that, then when the people who've been driving this are gone, what happens? How many of you know where the toilet paper rolls are kept? I know, see, we laugh. That's my point, is we laugh. But these are not funny questions. Every so often I do talks like these, and they're the most important things. Are you here for the first time? Cool, so a couple of you are getting just the direct shit for the first time. Some of you have been here 10 years and don't know where the toilet paper rolls are. It's funny until what? Until you need it. How many of you know where the paper towels are? We know how to leave them crumpled on the floor, but how many of you know where they're kept? Right? How many of you know how to put the cushions back and put the chairs in place and make sure this place is taken care of? The funny thing about Buddhism in the West is, there's this thing about money. And of course temples cost money. I've never done a talk on money in the Dharma Bum Temple for 17 years, and I'm not going to start now, right? But the reality is, in the Western culture, the easiest thing to get into a Buddhist temple? Money. Why? Because it's simple. These days, you just push the click of a button, and boom, there's money. And so people think that if money goes into a space, then it's all well and good, right? How many of you have ever been to a restaurant? When you go to a restaurant, let's walk through this. You sit down at the table. Let's just say it's a restaurant that you sit at. And then what happens? Who wants to play along?
Waiter takes out
Waiter comes over, what else?
What do you want?
Tell them what you want. And then? They bring it to you. And then? And then? You pay. And then you leave. Thank you for pointing that out. And the tip is based on what? Service, whether you liked it or not. So then you determine, is it 20%, 80%? They've even made it simple for you now to put, like, you don't even have to think anymore. It's all right there, broken down, right? But when you go to a restaurant, do you ever stay and clean the table?
No.
No. Because there's people there to do it for you. What do you think happens here at the temple? I'm being very serious. Some people have been showing up here for 15 years and done nothing for this place. These talks that I'm giving right now, I promise you, from one of the people who started this place 17 years ago, is the most important thing. When we tried to get this building 7 years ago, I wrote this whole long piece that said, Dogen taught, Great Zen Master lived from 1200 to 1253, if you're going to build a temple, build it to last for 1,000 years. Okay? When I wrote the piece, I toned it down and I just put 100, right? I didn't want to set the bar too high. It was like, this is America. They don't understand Buddhism. So let's start small. Let's just aim for how we can keep the temple going for 100 years, right? Right now, if a few people die and we're gone, this place would collapse in 6 months. And I mean that very seriously. And I've thought about this for years. This is truly, I believe, not coming from the founder syndrome of thinking that something couldn't survive without them. It could survive, right? But the heart of this place would be missing drastically. And that heart starts with the handful of people, and there are a handful, and some of you are in this room, right? So there are people in this room that this talk is definitely not for. There are people that come every week and clean the toilets. How important is that? Do you want to sit on a dirty, disgusting toilet? Have you ever thought, who cleans this? This is not a restaurant with a staff that's going to close up and then clean based on the money and the tip that you left. This is a Buddhist temple. And the mistake we have made, and I take full responsibility for this, is serving you all. We're not here to serve you. We're here to share the Dharma, which is the Buddhist practice. Now, usually once or twice a year when I give a talk like this, there's a range of emotions that happen in the people sitting here. There's a few of you that are like, that guy's an asshole, I'm never going back there. I'm definitely cool with that, right? There's a few of you that are like, I clean this place every day, or I take care of this place every day. And then there's probably the 95% that are in the middle that just maybe a talk like this will spark something in you that says, maybe I should take care of the place that gives me so much. And again, I am not talking about money. This is not about money at all. At all. Because the reality is, whether you have money or not, we could do the same thing inside these walls or outside these walls. The Dharma, the Buddhist teachings, are not contingent upon a building at all. So all of this could fall away. But how are we as a temple actually taking care of this place? And so I challenge all of you to ask yourselves that. What are you doing to take care of the space that you take so much from? And very often when I give this talk, I'm always reminded of Shel Silverstein's giving tree. What happens at the end of the giving tree? What does the tree do through the giving tree? Who knows it very well, or well enough?
It gives itself to the boy, like physically, pieces of itself.
The tree gives itself to the boy, physically pieces of itself.
Yeah.
From, how did the tree start out?
Full and lush.
Full and lush.
Yeah.
And then what happened? As the boy ages,
It becomes a stump.
it becomes a stump, ultimately. And then what happens at the end?
The boy's an old man and it sits on the stump.
The boy's an old man and he sits on the stump, because even when the tree is completely gone from giving itself, still provides a place to sit.
That's one of my favorite ones.
One of your favorite, but one of mine too. Right? And so at the very end, the stump is still there. And the boy, who is now a grown man, an old man, has a place to sit. So if a place like this is ever going to survive, this culture, this country has to understand that Buddhist practice is not a place that you just take from. This stuff will die. And Suzuki Roshi, the great Zen master who built San Francisco Zen Center and turned his back on the Japanese community because he wanted to bring the Dharma to the local people, said that for Buddhism to take root in a new country, it's as difficult as holding a flower next to a rock and expecting that flower to grow out of the rock. And he said it could take 200 years, I think he said 100 years actually, for Buddhism to really take root. I just factored in American culture and doubled it. Because everything in Buddhist practice is, in Buddhist practice is exactly opposite of Western culture. And the last thing I'll say on this talk, and for those who came in late, I'm sorry you missed the beginning, you can catch the YouTube piece of it. You might have heard this before anyways, a few of you that I'm looking at. So, when I started, and it was beautiful too, because 3 of the nuns from the Shifang temple down the street, which was my home 20 years ago where I started, when I went there every day to help, they didn't tell me to go meditate. They didn't come in and say, can I just go meditate for 20 more minutes while you wait for me? They gave me a hammer and told me to hang stuff. They told me where the trash was to go take it out. They told me where the cleaning supplies were to clean the bathrooms. Those were my masters. I learned Dharma by giving time, energy, love, attention to the place that was saving my life, literally. That led to me sitting here 20 years later. And for me as a practitioner, you never stop giving. And again, this is not about money at all. When I'm dead and gone, I've got enough in my life insurance policy that's coming here anyway. So financially, we'll be fine. But somebody said to me the other day, what are we going to do with that? How are people going to know how to take care of the temple? So we better start figuring out how to teach that. Because those are the important things. Because if you all showed up this morning and these cushions weren't here and these chairs weren't here, how happy would you be? Nobody put my chair out. Nobody put my cushion out. Right? So please, in my opinion, consider this the best Dharma talk I've given all year. Because it's the most important. The rest of the stuff is just how to help you with your emotions. And that's good too. But that's what therapy's for. You know? This practice, as the Buddha taught, number one, most important thing to overcome suffering is the word dana, which means generosity, not money. Dana does not equal money. Do not let American Buddhism ruin your view on that. Dana talk is the most disgusting phrase in Buddhist practice. The Dana talk should be about generosity and how you give time, attention, heart, love, practice, not money. And the greatest gift that you can give, as the Buddha taught, is the practice of the Dharma. So that's what we'll continue to do. And even if we end up just the stump, you know, at least there'll be a seat for one person, you know, show up early, I guess. So with that, we'll meditate, because I'm sure that's why you all came here. couple things before we begin, and for those who joined virtually, welcome. A couple things to tell you before we begin. Nothing's going to happen to you. You will not float away. You will not have any mystical, magical experiences. Your mind will not shut off. It will not stop racing. You will not think nothing. You're just going to sit and breathe. You'll hear sounds inside, sounds outside. This is life. Life is filled with chaos and dogs barking. And this practice is learning to get quiet and still within all of that. And if you're sitting there right now as we go into this meditation, a little bit uncomfortable and uneasy with everything I just shared, good. My intention. I'm not here to make you feel warm and fuzzy. That's what teddy bears are for. So we'll sit, finding a posture that's comfortable, pushing the stomach forward if you're on a cushion, relaxing the shoulders, hands can be on the knees or in the lap, whatever's comfortable. If you're on a chair, also just trying to sit up straight, relaxing the shoulders. I will guide us as we begin, and we'll settle into a little bit of silence. Most important, do not expect anything, but to sit and breathe. And starting with the eyes closed if comfortable, or slightly open. Mouth is open or closed. We'll start with taking 3 deep breaths, slowly. And eventually, settle into a natural rhythm of the breath. Noticing the mind as it wanders, jumping from thought to thought. Start with gently guiding the attention, focus to the stomach or chest. Breathing in, feel them rise. Breathing out, they fall. Simply continue this practice, observing sensation of breath. As the mind wanders, lost in thought, recognize it. Release that thought. Return attention, focus to the breath. Breathing in, follow breath in. Breathing out, follow breath out. Letting go of expectations. Letting go of judgments from your practice. Just sitting. Breathing. Learning to be comfortable in stillness, in quiet, expecting nothing but to sit and breathe. And when the body is still, rested, and the speech quiet, aware of all sounds, and the mind learning to settle. Know what it's like to just sit and breathe. Knowing with each breath, there's nothing else to do. Nowhere else else to go. And no one else to be. Everything beautiful, exactly as it is. Sitting, breathing. And once again, taking 3 deep breaths, slowly. And when ready, slowly opening the eyes. Slowly beginning to move. And most important, with the practice of meditation, is to recognize how you feel now, immediately after. Compare this to how you typically feel throughout your day. Recognize the difference, if there is one. Ask yourselves how you prefer to feel every day for the rest of your life. And realize however you feel now, if it's quiet, calm, and still, or a busy mind, racing mind, whatever you're sitting with at this moment, has nothing to do with anything I said. It's nothing to do with how we sit, hold the hands, or cross the legs. It's nothing to do with the sounds around us, or anything else for that matter. It's everything to do with your own mind, and your own mind's reaction to an external condition. This is what the Buddha called pratitya samutpatti, means dependent origination. This is the basis of the Buddha's awakening. The word Buddha simply means awakening. Here's a human being no different than any one of us, who began to understand why he suffered, why he got angry, sad, depressed, stressed, anxious. He began to understand the causal relationship of all phenomena. What that means, very simply, for all of us, regardless where you come from or what you believe in or where you think you're going, your whole life is filled with things that happen. You react. More stuff happens, more reactions. That's what we get. This practice is simply learning what it's like to respond to something quietly, peacefully, still. Because for most of us, the way you responded to the last 20 minutes is quite different from how you respond to everything else that's happening throughout your days. So all we're working on is closing the gap where the way you feel now is closer to how you feel always. Just as driven, motivated, productive, successful, whatever that means to you in your respective lives. But with a mind that's steady, clear, focused, distracted by nothing, disturbed by no one. This practice is not easy. It is not an escape, as often people think it is. It is direct perception into the present moment. And the present moment is filled with challenges, difficulty, chaos, conflict. And this practice is becoming aware of how you respond in each moment. And that's a challenge. It never changes. Every day. We have opportunities to practice thinking good thoughts, speaking good words, and doing good deeds. And that's really hard to do. But that's all this practice is about. Being mindful and aware of what you think, what you say, and what you do. And your intention behind each action. Meditation is free. Buddhist practice is free. It's just sitting and breathing and being aware. So with that, I'll pause. And as always, I really prefer to respond to questions, meditation, Buddhist practice, anything you're sitting with. And to those who are joining virtually, welcome. Again, glad you're here. Feel free as you are. There's a chat box on your screen. Feel free to say hello or if you have any thoughts or questions. We'll use the rest of our brief time this morning and I'll open up to questions. Yeah.
I'm new to practice. I'm going through a great period of change in my life right now. Your talk really helped me and inspired me. I'm dealing with fear, and I think that service, acts of service, is a great way to get outside of myself.
Yes.
Do you have any other thoughts on the teachings of how to cope with fear?
Yeah.
Times of change.
Yeah, a lot. Great question. I appreciate you saying that. Always in those talks, it's my intention to motivate and inspire and not piss off or harm, but you never know how it hits, It's still on my mind. Someone asked the other night a question around fear as well. And the individual was talking about multiple heart surgeries that his son was going through. Son was 15. Some of you were probably here the other night or when it was asked. And the question was exactly the same. It wasn't so much around the change aspect of it, but around the fear aspect of it. And I shared the acronym that I learned years ago that I'll start with, which I think is always beneficial anytime you're dealing with fear. False evidence appearing real. And so very often, and every situation is different, but very often when we are afraid of something, we're afraid of something that is potentially going to happen at what point in time? When? What's your name?
Anne.
And when is this thing that you're so afraid of potentially going to happen?
Wednesday.
Okay. Well, that made it easy. See, all of you who said future, you were partially right. I've asked that question a lot. No one's ever given you the exact day. So Wednesday. In some ways, this is easier because you already know when it's going to happen, right? Regardless, you don't know the result. You have a story in your head about how Wednesday is going to go. And you have an idea of how it's going to go. And the idea in your head is probably not good, or the fear wouldn't be there. Now, millions of things could happen between now and Wednesday. Okay. Did you drive here? No. You're not making this easy. How'd you get here?
I rode along with some friends.
In a what?
In a car.
In a car. Okay, so you came in a car, all right? Where's that car right now?
Parking lot.
You sure?
Are you sure?
Pretty sure? How can you be pretty sure? Did you park in the lot across the street where it says no parking?
Yes.
The one that says tow away, no parking? Now it's not your car, so now they're afraid. Right? The idea is you have no idea that you're even going to make it to Wednesday. Are you afraid about anything else between now and Wednesday? I could give you a list of stuff to be afraid of.
I am, sure.
Okay, so, wow, you're great. So all kinds of things will happen between now and Wednesday. Wednesday will happen. There's a story in your head of how you think it's going to go. it may go worse than what you're anticipating, if that's even possible. It also may go better than you're anticipating. However it's going to go, your fear, false evidence appearing real, the story that you have is not the exact truth. There will be many variations that will occur between now and Wednesday and after Wednesday. And the reality is, whatever your fear is around it does not change it. So the practice is to embrace it. Chogyam Trungpa is a great Buddhist teacher. Did a lot of stuff you shouldn't do, but other than that, he was a great Buddhist teacher. And not to downplay everything he did, but he talked about groundlessness. And he would say Buddhist practice is like being on a tall building and you've jumped, right? That's the bad news. The good news is there is no ground to fall on. So regardless of every outcome, every result, every painful trauma, every just life-crushing, devastating experience, you will have an opportunity to get through it and be okay. Could be better, could be worse. A year from Wednesday, maybe you'll be okay. Maybe better, maybe worse. So try not to lock ourselves into this idea of what we think is going to happen. Each difficulty is an opportunity to practice kindness and compassion towards self and others. Have you had major life occurrences in the past that you were afraid of? And here you are, still alive to talk about them. This one will be no different. And whatever the result is, then you'll deal with that. Now the fear will be gone, right? Because you'll have the result, the answer, whatever the situation is, the outcome will be determined, it sounds like, on Wednesday. And then you'll no longer be afraid. Then you'll just be left with the reality of a situation. And that's where you need to have your heart and mind in the present moment. And like I said to the guy who's going through the son coming up on his third heart surgery, the son needed him to be fearless and be present and appreciate the opportunity to be with the son during this experience, not be afraid and miss the experience.
This is what's the opportunity, is to be in the present moment and to handle it with grace.
Absolutely. To be in the present moment and handle it with grace. Yeah. I should have just said that. As always, it's all of you out there that really know the answers. So thank you. And I hope it goes how it goes and that you're okay. Yeah. What else? Thoughts, questions? Yeah.
What is Buddhism's philosophy towards law and order generally and capital punishment specifically?
So the question was, what is Buddhist philosophy around law and order generally and capital punishment specifically? Anytime people ask questions around, like, you didn't say these words, but you said Buddhist philosophy, but very often people will phrase a question like that and say, what did the Buddha say about, or what does the Buddha think about these things? And it always, first and foremost, for me, responding to any questions around this, questions around abortion, questions around really heavy topics, that I'm obviously just sharing my understanding, my interpretation. This goes without saying maybe, but I want to clarify for those who might be brand new and think that that I have the answer, right? I'm just making shit up like everybody else. But law and order. The Buddha lived within a sangha, a community of people. Okay, the monks and the nuns initially. They had what are called, I'm not going to turn this into a precept talk right now, but they had 227 to 311 precepts, guidelines, call them rules, call them laws, call them orders, call them whatever you want to call them. They were things that people had to abide by, and if they violated any one of those precepts, actually that's not fair for me to say, they're even broken down into minor precepts and major precepts, but there were many of them that if they violated them, they were kicked out of the order. There were minor ones that maybe they would kind of get, what we would call a slap on the wrist and then you need to do better type of thing. So my interpretation of the Buddhist community from the original Sangha, they had law and order. Absolutely. Why was it there? To keep the community safe. In theory. In theory, why is there law and order today? Regardless of what you think about it, right? To create a safe, healthy environment. Again, regardless of what you think and whether you think that's actually accomplished, right? It's there to keep people safe. And so I think law and order is important, incredibly important. And to me, the Buddhist teachings coming from the precepts is the law and order, right? As far as capital punishment, again, getting specific into the Buddhist teachings on the precept of causing no harm, okay? Killing someone is causing harm. And we kill people, places, and things every day of our life. Beyond just the life of someone, right? Anyone have steak and eggs for breakfast this morning? Right? Fish for dinner last night? Chicken for lunch? Right? This isn't meant to make you feel guilty for eating all this stuff. The idea is that we consume and kill things every day. But we jump straight to capital punishment. Right? Ever stepped on an ant? A snail? A cockroach? A spider? We don't lose sleep over those things. We lose sleep over capital punishment. Right? Do no harm is the intention and the practice. Understand that when we cause harm, when we kill on any level, or participate in the act of killing on any level, we are carrying that karmic action with us. Right? This comes up a lot. I've been working military, veterans and active combat folks for 20 years that have killed a lot of people. And that was their job. And they needed to do it. They needed to do it well to keep people safe. So things are going to happen. Absolutely. And the Buddha taught cause no harm. Yeah. What else? Yeah.
You talked about the difference between compassion and enabling.
Yeah. So the question of, can I talk about the difference between compassion and enabling? For those who maybe didn't hear it virtually. So to bring it back to basic Buddhist teachings, just to put in context very briefly, the first thing the Buddha taught was the Four Noble Truths. Life is filled with suffering, dukkha, discomfort, angst, dissatisfaction. We experience a lot of that in our entire life. The second thing he taught is the cause of suffering. You may or may not know this, but greed, anger, and ignorance. That's 3 poisons. And you overcome greed, anger, ignorance with generosity, compassion for anger, and wisdom with ignorance. The third one is the ending of suffering, liberation, nirvana, free from attachments. And the fourth is the Eightfold Path. Right? View, thought, speech, action, livelihood, effort, mindfulness, concentration. That's how we live our lives, right? So the Buddha taught these very simple steps as a way to free ourselves from suffering. Compassion is critical. And when we are angry towards self or others, the practice of compassion is what helps. When we are angry at ourselves, we must have love and compassion for ourselves. We're angry at others. We must try. Same with us. We must try to have compassion towards others. Now, the interesting thing about Buddhism is it's not just compassion. There are 2 wings, as they say, to Buddhism. Compassion and, anyone know the other one?
Emptiness.
No. Wisdom. But keep reading, you're getting there. Right? Wisdom. Okay? And emptiness, just to clarify, does not mean nothing matters and nothing exists. Emptiness, shunyata, means that the entire world is different from how you perceive it to be. Thich Nhat Hanh would say, all perceptions are wrong. You ever roam around all day long thinking everything you think is wrong? Probably not. Thich Nhat Hanh said, all views are wrong. We are attached to them and we think they're right. Okay? This is his teaching on nirvana, liberation, freedom from suffering, emptiness. All views are wrong. So, but that's for another day. Coming back to your question, wisdom is required. And very often in the art, practice, way of enabling people, we might not be so wise. Right? So I'll close with my snail story, since it's one of my favorites. Some of you have heard it, some of you have not. And especially since it's been raining. This also has to do with no harm, so this is great. We get to cover capital punishment and your question with a snail story. When I was a kid, 7, 8, 9, 10 years old, whenever it would rain, snails would come on the sidewalk, and I can still remember coming home from school or baseball practice or whatever it is, and all the snails on the sidewalk, and just stomping on them as a little kid. Something about it, I just liked the sound of it, the squish of it, right? Right? I'm being serious. And so I killed a lot of snails. Fast forward, 30 years, whatever, and I get into Buddhist practice, and all of a sudden I hear a talk on non-harming. It's like 20 years ago. And I quickly had this flashback to all the snails I slaughtered. And I felt a tremendous amount of guilt, shame, remorse, sadness. And I went on this save the snail crusade, where I spent probably 2 years. I don't know, every time I tell this story, the amount of time I spent doing this differs, so don't quote me on any of that. But I spent a long time trying to save the snails. And it would rain, I'd see all these snails on the sidewalk, I'd put them back in the grass. I'd move them out of the way, right? I was literally talking to snails, moving snails around, and I'm not that crazy, but I was trying to make up for all the snails I killed. And I did that for a couple years. And then one day, I was listening to a talk at the temple on wisdom. And all of a sudden, I had another, like I said, it took a couple years. I was like, oh my God, Jeff, you're such an idiot. You think you're saving these snails by moving them off the sidewalk. Makes sense, right? It's time. Do people only walk on sidewalks? Do I have any clue where the snail is actually going? Maybe the snail was almost at the snail's destination. And me, thinking I'm this hero saving the snails, goes, grabs the snail, moves the snail, is look at me, I saved that snail. And then in the snail's effort to go back, maybe they were shit, I was almost there. And this dude rolled around and moved me. Now I gotta go all the way back to where my family was. And in that process, boom, get stepped on by somebody else because they were on the grass and you can't see the snail in the grass. But on the sidewalk, at least you potentially have the option to see the snail. So, what I realized was I had no idea what the wisest thing was to do for the snail. No Buddhist text, no sutra, no amount of meditation was going to help me truly know what was best for the snail. So, ever since that moment when I see snails, I just, in my heart, in my mind, in my way, I bless them, I wish them well, and I leave them alone. Because I don't know if I'm really helping them or hurting them. And in theory, in practice, looking at and truly understanding emptiness, not just reading it and seeing it, but abiding in it, which I have no idea what it is like to abide in that. But I can only imagine from what I've read and studied in practice that when you can actually truly abide in the space of emptiness, then you will know what the wisest thing is to do in every situation. Otherwise, we are just guessing. And that's what we're often left with, right? We can't always just wish someone well and leave them alone in real life, right? The snails, that's kind of an easy process. But when we're dealing with loved ones, family, friends, that's not always the option we're going to choose. Very often, that's not even an option for us in real life situations. I mean, the snails are real life, so we have to come back to what is our intention? And very often, that's what we have to go with. What's our intention? And knowing still that the intention may be enabling someone. But we don't know. So wisdom, compassion, cultivate both as much as possible. And then pray. You know, so I hope that's helpful. Yeah. So I'm going to close on that. My ramble at the beginning ate up a lot of time. So we'll join palms as we close. May the benefit of this practice be shared with all beings in all directions. May all beings be at peace. May all be free from suffering. May any merit gained from this practice be transferred to those who need it most. All right, a few quick announcements before you all head out. Thanks for being here. My name is Jeff. I'm the Dharma. We opened up this temple 17 years ago to introduce Buddhist practice to those who show up. Those of us who lead, we're not monks, we're not nuns, we're not gurus, we're not masters, we're not teachers, we're not looking for students, we're just practitioners. We take our unenlightened views of Buddhist practice and we share it to the best of our ability with those who show up. So every night we have different practices going on. Every Thursday, 5 o'clock, we do a food redistribution program. We prepare gourmet vegetarian meals, also known as peanut butter and jelly, and we feed people who sleep on the street. So anytime you think your life sucks and you're really having a bad day, go feed people who put their head to sleep on a sidewalk every night. And it tends to put your problems into perspective a little bit. So that's every Thursday, 5 o'clock. Other than that, New Year's, we have our 18th annual New Year's Eve celebration. It's definitely a wild party here at the Dharma Bum Temple, as you can imagine. 7 o'clock, we do a vegetarian potluck. 9 o'clock, I do a history of the Dharma Bum Temple. And about 11:30, we all pile in here and do a silent 20-minute meditation going into the new year. So the whole evening's not silent, just 20 minutes. Some people come at 7 and then they're home and in bed by 9. Some people come at 9, some come at 11:30 just to sit, some stay all night. So you're all invited, you're all welcome at any point throughout the evening. Otherwise, and just to save all of those of you who may reach out to me and say like, are you okay? You seemed a little bothered at the beginning. What I shared at the beginning is on my heart and mind every single day for 17 years in this place. So I'm totally fine. It's just the most important thing to share, and once or twice a year, I have to share it that way or it doesn't get through to people. And that's the truth. So I'm totally fine. And if I shared that stuff every single day, none of you would be here. And I like you all. So thanks for showing up. See you soon.